In this lesson, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting rational expressions. Remember, last week we multiplied and divided rational expressions. And a rational expression, remember, it's just a fraction. In our case, it's going to have a lot of x's and variables and constants and all of that stuff, okay? So yesterday I left you guys that worksheet where you added just regular fractions, right? You would do like 2/3 plus 3/9. Remember, to add fractions when they don't have common denominators, you have to find a common denominator. So between 3 and 9, the common denominator is 9, okay? In order to make this 3 turn into a 9, you have to multiply it by 3. And then you also have to multiply the numerator by 3. This left-hand side fraction becomes 6/9 plus 3/9, or 12/9. And then you would reduce this, and then 12/9 would reduce by 3 to become 4/3. Okay. Today we're going to add and subtract fractions where we're not just going to have numbers. We're going to have variables, and we're going to have to do some factoring. So the first thing we have to do is just recognize the fact that when you're adding or subtracting two fractions, you have to get a common denominator. Okay. And you might remember from elementary school, you call this the least common denominator. Okay. So here are our steps. Okay, most of these you will have to factor the denominators, figure out which factors they have in common, and then multiply by what factors they don't have in common. Okay, example 1 on the bottom, the denominators are the same, so we actually don't have to do anything. We can subtract. When you're subtracting, be careful because you're going to subtract the entire quantity 7x plus 4 minus the quantity 3x minus 4. When you're subtracting and you're going to distribute out this negative sign, 7x plus 4, this becomes negative 3x and positive 4. 7 minus 3 is 4x. 4 plus 4 is 8. And the common denominator is x squared plus 3x plus 2. We are going to factor this, okay? So let me factor this into x plus 2, x plus 1. X plus 2, x plus 1. You can also take out a common factor in the numerator now, which is going to be 4, x plus 2, x plus 2, x plus 1. The same thing is going to happen. Look, this happened last week. You're going to be able to take these terms and simplify them down to 1, leaving you with 4 over x plus 1. Okay? This one, there is not a common denominator. They have 8 in common, but they don't have x, which means that this fraction on the left-hand side needs the x. So I'm going to multiply this by x and this by x. Then I'm just going to subtract 5x minus 3. Can't actually do this. Over the new denominator becomes 8x. Nothing here can be factored. Nothing can be simplified. So that's your answer. Example number 3. You know that 3 and 9 have a relationship. This one does not have an x. This one needs to be moved to a 3. So what I'm going to do is change the common denominator into 9x. Okay. In order to get this to become 9x, I have to multiply by x, which means I need to multiply the 4 by x. In order to get the 3x to become a 9x, I have to multiply this by 3, which means I have to multiply this by 3. 4x plus 3 is 4x plus 3 over 9x. Okay, mostly we're going to do the ones where you have to factor. So let's do this. We're going to go in here. We're going to factor anything we can first. So I'm going to factor this left-hand side denominator. So 5x. I'm going to factor this into x plus 5, x plus 2. I'm sorry, yeah, x plus 2. Plus 4 over x plus 5. I'm just bringing this down. Now, if you look at the denominators, you already have an x plus 5, so this is taken care of. The factor that the right-hand side fraction does not have is x plus 4, so I need to multiply this by x plus 2. Sorry, x plus 2. And this by x plus 2. You do not need to multiply this back together. The common denominator is x plus 5, x plus 2. 5x plus 4x plus 8. Then you're going to combine like terms, 9x plus 8 over x plus 5, x plus 2. For example 5, go ahead and factor. You can only factor this. Remember, it's a difference of squares. So it's 16 over x plus 4, x minus 4, plus 2 over x plus 4. Part of the common denominator that you already have is the x plus 4. So that's taken care of. Which means that the right-hand fraction needs an x minus 4. X minus 4. Bring this down, 16 over x plus 4, x minus 4. Okay, plus 2 x's minus 8. Combine like terms, 2x, 16 minus 8 is negative 8, over x plus 4, x minus 4. This one you can factor. You can factor out of 2. So 2 times x minus 4, x plus 4, x minus 4. Here's like terms. These simplify down to 1. So you're left with 2 over x plus 4. Okay, a little bit harder than last week. Okay, we're not just sitting here and cross-simplifying the terms so that they become 1. We actually have to figure out what are the factors and then figure out what's the common denominator and then go in there and multiply it. Okay, try these 3 by yourself. I'm going to work on them and you guys can check your answers with the video at the end. Actually, let me do this one with you guys. The leading coefficient is not 1. So you have to multiply this term times that term to get 6, right? And then you're figuring out what are the factors of 6 that would give you negative 7. So it has to be negative 6 and negative 1. So let's factor this first, and then we'll worry about putting everything together. Remember, in order to do this, you have to factor by grouping. So you would do 2x squared minus 6x minus 1x plus 3. This is just another way of rewriting negative 7. Factor out the 2x. You're left with x minus 3. This one you can factor out negative 1. So you're left with x minus 3. The common term is x minus 3, so that's one factor. Another factor is 2x minus 1. Over x minus 1, or x minus 1 is over that, minus, okay. And there was also a 2 out here from over here. All right. They have x minus 3 in common, which means that the left fraction needs a 2x minus 1. It also needs a 2, which means this needs a 2. And this needs a 2x minus 1. Let's do 5 times 2 first. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 times 2x minus 1 would be 20x minus 10 over 2 times 2x minus 1 times x minus 3 minus, you're going to subtract this. So minus x minus negative 1 is positive 1. 20x minus x is 19x. Negative 10 plus 9 is positive 9. Over 2 times 2x minus 1 times x minus 3. And that is your final answer. Okay, make sure you have that copy down because I am going to erase it so I have room for the next problem. All right. Example 7. 4 over. Let's factor this into factors of 6. That would give you 5. So -3, -2, minus 5. Factors of 12 that are 1 away from each other, x plus 4, x minus 3. All right, here we go. They have x minus 3 in common. Let's do the left-hand side first. The left-hand side has an x minus 2, which we have to bring over here and give to this side. The right fraction has an x plus 4, which we have to bring over here. Okay. Again, do not multiply out all these terms in the denominators. You just need to multiply out the numerators. So on the left-hand side, 4x's plus 16. 5 times x, 5 times -2. You're subtracting the term, so you're subtracting 5x, and you're subtracting -10. Minus a negative becomes a positive. This is all over x minus 2 times x minus 3 times x plus 4. Clean this up a little bit here. 4x minus 5x is -x. 16 plus 10 is positive 16 over x minus 2, x minus 3, x plus 4. Okay, for example 8, you don't have to factor anything. In fact, you cannot factor anything from these denominators. But you do know that this needs a 3x minus 1. And you know that the left-hand side needs an x plus 1. Okay. On the left fraction, you do need to multiply these two terms together. So it would be x squared plus 8x plus x plus 8 over x plus 1 times 3x minus 1. Plus, this would become 3x squared plus 9x minus x minus 3 over x plus 1 times 3x minus 1. Okay, let's go in here and combine some like terms. I have 3x squared and an x squared, so that's 4x squared. I have 8x plus x, so that's 9x, plus 9x, that's 18x, minus 1, that's positive 17x, and then I have positive 8 minus 3, which is negative 5, over x plus 1 times 3x minus 1. Now, if we could, we would try to factor the numerator. Let me just see if we can factor this numerator. You'd have to do it by grouping. So 4 times -5 is -20. Are there any factors of -20 that would add together to give you 17? So you have 2 and 10, that won't work. 4 and 5, that won't work. So you're just going to leave this as your final answer.